So welcome back to the Reliably Intermittent podcast. This will be our third full episode. As always, I'm Aaron Ware with Clemens Nelson and Associates, and back again for the third time is Drew Esposito, here to hopefully take you through some fun material. Well, actually, I don't know. We were just talking about this, and it's early in our podcasting careers, but we might have hit a little bit of roadblock. So, Drew, is there anything fun, interesting out there that you might want to talk about? Because I don't have anything.
Well, there's always interesting stuff. You want to go like contract stuff. You want to go employees behaving badly stuff. I got some good stuff. I'm telling you.
I'm a big fan of employees behaving badly, at least for entertainment purposes. So why don't we go there?
Oh, love it. So I got a great one. And obviously, since I'm not in the office, I got my lovely Halloween decor occurring behind me, and I'm in my Club Esposito with this neon light. It's perfect for actually today. All right, you're going to get a kick out of this because I haven't had the chance yet. So first of all, I got a guy with one of our clients who's, I would say maybe like 62 to 67, right? And he's been there 25 years or so. Maintenance type dude, something like that. And I get a call from the client. And apparently this dude has just been watching porn like religiously at least for 2 years, right? Like the catch on the internet, like for the IP, like it only goes back 2 years.
I'm assuming at work.
Yes.
Okay.
So they think it could have been longer, first of all. So no, it wasn't the catch only goes back 2 years. It started 2 years ago. But 2 years ago is when the city, I think, got Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And so once the city got Wi-Fi, the individual was like, well, I got to save data. And so flipped to the Wi-Fi so he could stream and surf all he wanted. So once he did that, then the history became available.
Okay.
And I think it was just like routine IT audits and stuff like that. Like no one reported them or anything like that. So the client sends me this Excel sheet, just site, just tons of stuff. Like and like the ones that everybody knows about, like YouPorn is on there. But I mean, some obscure stuff that is not mainstream porn. It was really hilarious because like
Rule 34 stuff.
Oh, I'm because I've got to investigate, right?
Naturally.
And some of it is like it's long form, like pornographic written erotica. So it's like fan like. I mean, like, it's not like, oh, I'm going to watch a clip. Like, it's like novels. So the guy's physically reading novels, like hardcore porn. Like, it's not like what you see at Giant Eagle with like the Italian guy with long hair, like with a swooning.
Yeah, no Fabio.
Yeah, it's not a romance novel. It's definitely much more pornographic. And not to completely segue, it reminded me, I think this was one of Brian's clients when we had the client that got caught like writing a novel about like alien abduction and pornography and then printing it out on the printer at work. Like it was like that type of length. I mean, it was insane. So whole ordeal. Yeah. I mean, it's just, we talk it through, but amazing, just amazing stuff.
So this guy, okay, so he's a maintenance guy.
Yeah, I think I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was like maintenance, repair stuff, just things like that.
And he's just he's doing his thing,
Yeah, like so, like think of it like it's like, oh well, I could watch a paint dry or wait for some bonding agent to set, and like, well, in my downtime.
So basically, he's did he cop to it?
Oh yeah, yeah. So like, I mean, we do the charges, all the fun stuff. We have the meeting. Uh, his rap is in awe. Like,
So
he doesn't see anything wrong with it.
yeah.
Zero.
So he's like, well, I've got to wait for this widget to set. So
Yeah,
I'm while I'm waiting, while you're paying me, I'm not on break. I'm assuming.
not on break.
Okay, so
But
I'm
even
just
then, it's
gonna.
like the city's Wi-Fi.
Well, I'm not suggesting that being on break makes it okay. I'm just trying to connect some dots here. So he's on duty watching porn or apparently reading porn.
Both. Well, don't get me wrong, both. I mean, there's video but like large swath of just like the written word. You know, like
Well,
a picture paints 1,000 words. These were 1,000 words. These were long. These were some long documents.
yeah, I'm not here to get into anyone's predilection towards their own jollies, as it were. I don't know what a polite way to say it is, but I think it's easy to say that this guy doesn't get it. That so Wi-Fi, porn, on duty. So I guess we're looking at a time theft situation.
Yeah,
among
for sure.
among others.
But for sure, like, and that's so. Like, I think like the idea that they had that he had was, well, like, if I was to like I don't know, go on foxnews.com while I was waiting, like, well, would I be in trouble? And like it was like a combination where I'm like trying to explain, like, well, look, if you are spending this much time waiting, like, you should be doing other things. So it doesn't really matter what website you go to,
Yeah,
right?
it's that if you're leaning, you're cleaning philosophy that we all learned in our first job working
Yeah.
at a restaurant or a grocery store.
But then I was like, oh, there's also not a comparison too. Like, so like if you were waiting for such a like de minimis time that we would have allowed you to, I don't know, crack a book for a second, that's different than looking at porn. Like, there's just appropriate behavior at work. So I'm like, no matter where you cut it, you're wrong here, buddy.
Yeah, we're not paying you to hang out. In a
Yeah,
nutshell.
yeah, it was insane.
Well, I mean, we've all probably at some point or another in our firm dealt with an employee accused of the porn stuff.
Yeah,
I've had one, not to that extent necessarily, but in a firehouse where they're on duty 24 hours, you come across I was looking at things that I definitely should not have been looking at on a city computer or a township computer, using Wi-Fi, using the internet, irrespective, like triaging this, the conduct, regardless of when it occurred, the way they were doing it is inappropriate. Then you get into, okay, now we don't pay you to frolic. There we go. That's what I'll use. We don't pay you to frolic on our time.
yeah,
Like you said, you might be having that thing, the paint might be drying, the glue might be setting, whatever the case may be. I can't imagine that's the only thing you're tasked with doing on a given period of time. And even if there's other things you could be doing. You could be taking inventory. You could be doing any number of things that aren't reading adult-based erotica.
yeah.
Right? So
yeah, there's always something that can be done, right? I mean,
so okay. So you said IT discovered this, because I got to imagine there's in the circumstance that I had, it was a big dummy that decided it was cool to do it because it was a firehouse, and
yo, bro,
our work day's over, so I can do that. And somebody happened upon and this dum-dum decided that audio was appropriate. So, like, no presence of mind whatsoever. But that one, the excuse was, well, it's a firehouse. We chop it up.
Frat house. It's frat
It's
house.
a frat
man.
house. Yeah, the frat house mentality that, slowly but surely is dying one firehouse at a time, because I think this is something that I tell all my clients. I think everybody that I've done work for at any point in time, I'm most frequently shocked by how often our job is going in and telling adults to act like adults. You're at work. You're there to work. You're there to do a job. You're not there to do that. You're not there to goof off and whatnot. Our situation, the firehouse thing is a little quirkier because, there is some downtime that is permissible, but that doesn't mean you get to do those kinds of things.
Well, and what about just like, I don't know if you're getting the same thing. I think definitely smaller employers that don't see the litany of issues on a more regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
They also get, I feel like they get stuck in this thing like, well, if it's something that's happened in the past and it's always happened that way, it somehow prevents me from correcting it. Like that you have to accept bad actions because no one did anything about it in the past. Well, the prior boss, the prior supervisor, he knew about it and didn't do anything, so now I can't. And it's like, no, you can always correct behavior. Like, you don't have to permit bad behavior. I don't care where you are.
No, you don't have to permit it. There are certainly considerations as to what level or how, but you don't have to allow bad things to continue.
Yeah.
There's no question, because we do run into this from time to time where, and this is actually one of the hot topics that has been going on all summer, right? Dealing with law enforcement.
Yeah.
It's very, rarely, if ever, no, you can't correct the behavior. It's to the extent, right? That's where you get into the situations of, well, my hands are tied to the extent that, taking this incident in isolation, I think it warrants X penalty and say it's termination. Where you get into trouble there is if, and unfortunately, this is just a practical reality we're dealing with in Ohio, and I think you're seeing that most jurisdictions across the country are dealing with, is you are kind of married to the penalty-based decisions for wrongful conduct that your predecessor elected officials, your predecessor department heads, et cetera, decided to hand out for certain conduct. I mean, we're in Ohio, and how many times have we kicked around the office? Well, thanks a lot, Cleveland. Thanks a lot, Cuyahoga County, because you've got on video a corrections officer, two corrections officers with a restrained inmate, and one slugs the inmate in the stomach while the other one's hitting him with bear mace, right? And you take that incident in isolation, you go, how can that person possibly do that job? Yet, the penalty when you go through the process becomes, well, that's a 2-day suspension and that's a 6-day suspension. And it's like, okay, any other line of work, any other situation like that, that person's not doing that job anymore because that conduct is just so obviously, and we hear this all the time, common sense that you don't do that.
Yeah.
There's a difference between restraining, there's a difference between bear macing a restrained individual. But again, I think the only point to bring that up is there are certain circumstances where you're limited by your predecessors in what you can do with it, not doing something with it.
Mm-hmm.
We deal with that all the time.
What do you do? What if you're trying to separate yourself from the prior decision? Like, you're aware of it, right? You're aware that there have been some decisions on discipline that, in your opinion, were light. Mm-hmm. And you're like, look, if this happens under my watch, you're not getting a slap on the wrist. You still may not win when you're trying to fight it, but sure, to try to set yourself up for a win.
It's notice.
Notice or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's notice, right? I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's noticed, but I think it's noticed with an understanding that, hey, I'm willing to put myself out there and run the risk that a goofy arbitrator, a goofy neutral is going to say, hey, I understand what your thought process is here, but this is the reality for your operation. And unfortunately, you're beholden to what Sheriff so-and-so did 10, 12, 15 years ago. I mean,
Gotcha.
we've dealt with that in the last year, where prior administrations had taken actions that unfortunately somebody comes in and goes, not on my watch. But the arbitrator says, yeah, I understand that. You're right. You should have that authority. But
Yeah, at least you tried.
Yeah, good effort, but we don't agree. So really, you can try the notice thing. Then the alternative is bargaining and identifying how important, because I mean, most of these things come up in the context of labor, of union settings and arbitration. Mm-hmm. To a lesser extent, for those of our employees, again, dealing primarily here with the public sector, if you have folks that aren't in a union setting, that they have, administrative law judges, at least historically, would look at things a little more on their own individual merits. As long as you weren't singling someone out and you were the one that set the pattern, you were the one that treated a specific employee during your time in a position of authority, at least they would kind of look at it and go, okay, yeah, you've been consistent. You set the rule. You let everybody know this is how things are going to be, and you have applied it. Mm-hmm. It's notice and it's consistency, right?
Yeah.
I think those are at least where successful. Like back to our original thing with the porn situation, I think that one, a decent policy, computer use, use of employer provided
when do you think
internet.
When do you think the last time this employer even touched their employee handbook, their policy and procedure? What? Give me a guess.
I'm guessing it was somewhere around the time that Seal's "Kissed by a Rose" was out during Batman Forever.
I bet. I think it was like 92, 93. I think
I overestimated. So that would have been Batman Returns.
Yeah, I think it was like 92, 93. Now, fortunately, it wasn't too difficult to find a work rule that even existed in the 90s that said you can't watch pornographic or offensive things on the clock. But what do you think, whether it's a union or not, doesn't matter. What do you think a good resolution if you would have had someone with one of your clients doing this? We'll throw the caveat. So long-term employee.
Sure.
With no prior discipline. Forget the union. Forget it. They may as well be at will. Who cares?
I mean, all right. So I'm going to take some liberty with some context.
Okay.
Assuming this guy's doing this by himself.
That's true. By himself. Okay.
So he's not out there broadcasting it. It's not where other employees are coming across it. He's not making others uncomfortable per se.
Good assumption.
Okay.
There's no like sexually charged atmosphere that he's creating for a potential lawsuit from someone else.
Sure.
That didn't exist.
I mean, ultimately, I think termination probably would be defensible. I think ultimately, if this is a guy who comes in and goes, yeah, I did it. I didn't understand it was that bad. I'll never do it again. Please allow me to just get to retirement kind of a thing, 25-year guy. You probably structure it some way that he understands you'll never get to do this again, or pretty much anything else.
Yeah.
We do last chance agreements like that all the time. Like, hey, everybody, I've done it. I didn't know it was something I shouldn't be doing. I promise you I won't do it again. That sort of a thing. Maybe you steer him towards a serious suspension with some kind of agreement that says, hey, don't ever do anything like that again. If it's a situation, again, taking liberty with facts where the guy's like, I can do that. What's the big deal? Flip it with it. No remorse. You have no idea that they're not going to flagrantly violate this policy. You boot them. And
yeah.
You go, and because this is one of those situations too, depending on the community, that this gets out, and just like our situation with the man cave from last week, you're going to have a lot of egg on your face here.
Yeah.
Because how many suspicions does this confirm about the public writ large about public employment?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got 4 guys to do one thing. I'm driving down the highway and I see 4 guys standing around watching another guy paint lines. Same idea, right? You're paying this guy to read adult erotica? What are we doing here? Why am I paying taxes for that? Mayor, city manager, whatever. You're allowing this? So there's some value in considering that too. You know, hey, we discovered it. We've got a rule that says don't do it. The guy knows there's a rule that says don't do it. He did it. He may not have been told that specific thing, but again, back to common sense. We're not paying you to look at porn.
Yeah.
You know, I think you can, it depends on the situation. It depends on the circumstances. As always, greasy lawyer answer, it depends. But yeah, I think you can handle it in a couple different ways effectively, depending on the situation.
Yeah, I was on the fence. I think I was leaning towards termination. But we ultimately ended up with a last chance. I can't remember the duration of it. At least 2 years. It may have been 4. I think it was 4 now that I'm thinking about it. And a 30-day suspension.
Okay.
So we did a long, and I guess for me, I don't know what pushed me to lean off that termination, because I was really worried about the public perception if it you know, and how it looks. Not just public, like the other employees are going to find out about it. So I was like, I don't know if I want this. But him being just admitting it, right, and not have any. Sure, at least initially he didn't understand, so he was pretty cavalier about it. But at least he was honest, which is something I can rarely say when I'm facing these things. So that always goes a long way for me if a person's being honest about screwing up. And 2, at least after kind of hammering the time theft, I was like, look, this is how much time, man. Like, we're paying you by the hour. This is a theft. He was like a little slow on the uptake, but it seemed like he had a little bit of an epiphany. Like, I didn't even think about it like that, you know? And I was like, yeah, you know?
Truthfully, the time theft is probably worse than the porn.
Yeah, exactly. If you take like morality and whatever your views are out of it, I think time theft is a bigger issue, because you're supposed to be doing work for your employer or for the public or for the citizens, whoever. Like, you're supposed to be accomplishing those tasks, furthering the goals and mission of your employer, of your agency. You know, and that.
Well, and I don't want to paint with broad strokes, but it comes back to part of that discussion that we were having about being beholden to prior administrations too. You know, in a lot of the places that we see 30-year-old policy books, the rule application or the level of discipline that gets handed down isn't always consistent. And whether you're in arbitration or in front of an administrative law judge or whatever, they want to know how you've treated similarly situated employees. So that's where you do take morality out of it, and the employees can come in and go, well, these people goof off, these people do X, Y, and Z on the clock, and you don't hammer them, and you knew about it, and you allowed it to go on. I mean, there's, like I said, context is important here. There's certain things that you don't get to do. You don't pass go. You don't collect $200 more from us. Time theft probably can't, I don't say probably, it's contextual, because it's going to matter how you've applied that rule in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not that you can't correct the behavior and tell this person to stop doing it, or anybody that's doing it. It's just what you can do with it.
Yeah, it's always a close one, because anybody worth their salt in anything can probably just directly ask the employer's rep, you know, hey boss, have you ever done anything on Amazon? You know, they can throw stuff in your face. Now, this one, since it was so much time, like everyone can honestly say, no, I didn't sit there and play Tetris for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Like you got a day here where you're watching porn for 4 out of the 8 hours.
Yeah.
No, I don't do that. You know, I don't visit ESPN for 4 hours a day. So like but you got to be prepared for that kind of throw in your face. What you're telling me you've never gone on Facebook? You're telling me you've never gone on Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like somebody that's been out of law school for 2 months is going to make that argument.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be an obvious one. But I thought you'd like that guy. It was good. Happy resolution, right? I mean, everyone came to an agreement, but it's always fun when I get like a, 1,000-page Excel sheet or, with all like the entries, the timestamps, the IPs, like.
Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, enough of those are labeled in a way that you know what they are, and the research can be limited.
Oh, I forgot. This is the best part about it. Completely unrelated to the employment aspect. So I'm doing the pre-disciplinary documents, getting stuff ready. And it's like late, like 2 a.m. maybe, super late. And I go downstairs for whatever reason, and Bethany gets up. Something wakes her up. So the computer's up, the Excel sheet's up. She's got no, and it's got all these porn sites listed. And I come in and she's like, "What are you doing?" Like I'm like, I am not good. Like, and she's like, yeah. I see it on the computer. I'm like, it's an Excel sheet. It's an Excel. Like, trust me, it's not 2 a.m. and I'm not going to this erotica website. I was like, oh, how do I get myself into this situation? Maybe if I didn't procrastinate and do this at 2 a.m. But
don't put yourself in the if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck situation.
Yeah. Like I was just like, just another reason I should do this at the office.
Jeez. Yeah, I think that's probably as good a place as any to put a bow on this conversation.
Yes, love it.
Okay, well, as always, thank you for joining us. I think we need to do a better job of this. For those of you who haven't yet, please subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. We're now on Google Podcasts for those of you that want to just stick with the podcast player that they provide on Android. Subscribe, like, unsubscribe, resubscribe, relike, unlike. It all helps us. I'm only half kidding about that last part. But yeah, please subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell people you don't like. I don't care. Just please engage with the content. We love it. We want to keep doing it. And the more it gets around, the more we're going to be able to do it and provide hopefully some fun stuff and some stuff to learn along the way. Drew, any parting thoughts and shots?
No, later, brother. Loved it. Good episode. I'm a fan.
All right. Well, until next time, thanks for sticking around with us to the end here, and we will see you again, and goodbye. We want to thank you again for joining us on the Reliably Intermittent podcast. Now it's time for a bit of a disclaimer. This podcast and all others on this feed are for informational purposes only and not legal advice. No attorney-client relationship is formed by listening to this podcast or any others on the feed. Should you require or want legal advice, we encourage you to reach out to an attorney or statutory legal counsel as the case may be. Thanks again for joining us, and we will talk to you next time.